First of all, good day, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. It's part of our ongoing series where we focus on the most powerful applications to enhance your core systems like MRB EXO and Advanced. So today we are really pleased to introduce Daniel Woods from TIG Freight, which is certainly one of the most foremost freight management systems. And Daniel comes with a host of experience in logistics and supply chain management. Daniel is a senior manager at TIG, and hopefully he'll share today his wealth of knowledge and provide us with some actionable insights. Now, like most of these systems, the most valuable insights you get is from valued customers. So we also joined by Julian Ure from Karen Labs, and he'll tell us a little bit about his experience with the system. So before I hand over to Daniel, we encourage everyone to type any questions that arise, and Daniel will address these during our Q&A session at the end of this webinar. Daniel, over to you.
Thank you, Johan. I will kick off with the agenda for today. We're going to talk a little bit about TIG first, so just an introduction about TIG, what we do, and a little bit about us. Very importantly, I'm going to touch on the actual, an update on the market. So what's happening currently in the market, what we've seen over the last 12 and 24 months. We'll talk quickly around the integration. And while we don't have a live demo, we've got some details to go through that. And then what hopefully everyone's here today to learn about is around how we can control some of these market forces that we've all seen over the last sort of 12 to 24 months. We're going to talk about Karen Lab. So we'll throw to Julian and we'll just talk a little bit about their story. They've been with a customer of ours for a couple of years now, and we'll just talk through their journey. And then we'll wrap up and throw out to the audience. Please ask as many questions as you can. We'll answer them at the end. So first and foremost, who is TIG and what do we do? So it's a little bit of a mouthful, but we describe ourselves as a full service freight solutions provider. Now, what that really means is we provide an end-to-end solution from checkout through to delivery through the entire freight and logistics process. So we're not a startup, we're not an aggregator, we're not a carrier, or we're a freight broker. We do provide that tailored end-to-end solution for each and every one of our customers. And hopefully throughout the webinar, I can articulate and explain a little bit more in detail what that actually means. So our history, we've been around since 2001. So that's 22 years. First employee started in 2004, and we've expanded, across the Eastern Seaboard throughout that time. In 2017, we established our partner program, which I'm heavily invested with, working with partners such as Kilimanjaro, and then looking at obviously connecting that into the MyOp ecosystem. Last year, we structured up, as we call it. We appointed a board and a CEO. However, it really ended up being BAU for our business, as our first employee is now our CEO, and our board basically comprises of our two company directors. So we're still Australian owned and operated, unlike some of our sort of other competitors in our particular space, which are either owned by private equity or foreign investment. So we are really, really proud still to be, that Australian business. We've got three branches across the Eastern Seaboard. So we've got Melbourne, Hawthorn East in Melbourne. We've got Mascot in New South Wales, and then we've got Hendra in Queensland. We're looking to open up an Adelaide branch towards the end of this year, and then also expanding out into WA, into Perth, and then across the ditch, as we say, into New Zealand as well. We've got a team of over 85 across the nation, and we've got approximately, give or take, 350 or so clients. We manage a freight portfolio of over $135 million. And what that means for you is we've effectively got the buying power to be able to cater for your freight needs. Our technology, which we'll talk somewhat in depth today, is called Open Freight, and that powers our back end, and that's been around for a number of years. And we are working on a new version of our platform called Open 360. We've got over 150 client partners. They support all types of delivery methods. It doesn't necessarily matter if you've got e-com deliveries or wholesale distribution, B2B or B2C. Each and every one of our carriers, carrier partners, serves a unique purpose for our customers and themselves. And that spend that we mentioned before is sort of split across the board. We've got our tier one carriers. So we've got Star Trek, FedEx, which used to be called TNT, and Team Global, which used to be Toll Express and Toll IPEC and whatnot, Australia Post. And then, as I said, we've got carriers for almost every single requirement below. Our platform is built locally here in Melbourne. It's 100% owned and managed by us. So it's our own proprietary system, it's our own technology, and it's been in service for quite a number of years now. Open Freight is well and truly an enterprise-grade platform. We process millions and millions of shipments every single year and millions of API requests per month. It's a cloud-native system, so it was built with cloud-first solution. So it wasn't adapted into the cloud. It was 100% a cloud-native platform. And that ensures, I guess, the security, the stability, the scalability, and the performance of the technology. All your data is hosted here locally in Australia, which I think, again, in today's world, particularly in 2023, is absolute paramount to have your data as close as possible. And it's in the cloud, in a managed and secured environment. We've got 350 or so client partners, and they're across a broad industry verticals of more than 20. We've got customers that do wholesale distribution in particular, customers that do e-commerce. They've got retail stores. They've got a combination of that. They're doing B2C and B2B deliveries. A number of customers here that we've brought up on this slide are actually using MYOB, whether that's MYOB Advanced or MYOB EXO. We've got Karen Lab here as well, just for visuals. I hope I got the logo right. So TIG have three service offerings, and they boil down to these three. The first is what we call a managed service offering. And we've got about 95% of our customer base use this particular type of service. The way that works is you hold the account with TIG, and TIG hold the account with the carriers. We manage your freight completely end to end. We're your single point of contact for all things customer service. So you call our customer service team. You get one single consolidated invoice every week, which consists of all your freight. You've got a dedicated account manager. You've got a dedicated freight investigator. We are your one-stop shop, and we really do take the pain out of freight. Under that method, managed freight service, there's no cost to set up. There's no cost to integrate. However, there is a minimum spend of around $300,000 a year or so on freight. From a cost point of view, as I said, there is no cost other than obviously your freight bills that you would get right now. A second option, which a smaller number of our customers use, but is just as useful, is what we call our platform-only BYO carrier approach. In that instance, you pay for the platform as a connector into MYOB. You maintain your existing relationships with your carriers that you have right now. So if you're dealing with Australia Post, let's say, you would continue to deal with them. You would still continue to receive invoices from them, deal with their customer service. If you had multiple carriers, you would still continue to do that as you do right now. BAU from a freight delivery point of view. In that instance, you pay for the platform. That starts around $2,000 a quarter or around $8,000 a year. It's a small cost to set that up, and it's a small cost to integrate. Doesn't matter how much you spend on freight. It's based around the transaction volume on the number of consignments you ship. The third option, which we're seeing taken up, I guess, quite a bit currently, particularly in the last sort of 12 to 24 months, is what we call a hybrid option. So a hybrid option is a combination of managed and BYO. And what that looks like is we look after a majority of your freight, and then you might bring your own carriers. So we might manage the majority of your distribution, and then you might attach Australia Post to that. In that instance, there's a small cost to set up, and again, no cost to integrate. And it's a minimum expense to be aware of. Hopefully I've explained this well. We sometimes do get some questions at the end of this just to clarify this. But we sort of, try to summarize this for the webinar as best we can. Onto the market update. So it's definitely been a challenging 12 to 24 months, 36 months potentially, and more in the freight and logistics market. So what we've seen overall is freight cost increase year on year by around 28%. At the same time, service levels have decreased around 12%, and the number of orders that are actually being dispatched by our customers and customers that we know and we speak to and we work with of around 18% increase to the number of orders. So there's obviously a huge increase in pressure of costs, while at the same time, unfortunately, the service levels have decreased. Luckily, in some instances, we're seeing things stabilize. So we're seeing fuel levies. Fuel is normally bought months in advance, so it takes a little while to trickle down and then likewise fire back up. But we're seeing fuel levies stabilize over the last couple of months, and that's sort of coming back down. However, there are new surcharges. There are increases to surcharges. There's a number of other factors that are I guess, in play. Most businesses get a freight increase every year. If you don't, you're lucky. Can I have a chat to you later? Please give me a call because I'd love to know how you get away with it. But generally speaking, what happens is in September, October, November, there's an increase. There's a freight increase. We all know it's like taxes. It happens every single year. Depending on when you sign with your customer or with your carrier, it may be May, April, possibly as early as March. But large majority of businesses are on that sort of September, October, November. It doesn't matter when it is. What actually matters is the amount. So historically, it is somewhat benched against CPI. So historically, that's been around 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5%. However, obviously with the current inflation that we've all experienced and the cost of living and whatnot, that CPI and therefore that the actual increases were a lot more last year. So we saw 7, 8, 9, 10, 11%, which is the first time we've obviously seen that in a number of years in terms of freight rate increases. Additionally to that, we're now seeing for the first time ever in the 12 years I've been with the business, out of cycle increases. Out of cycle, out of the blue, as of the 1st of July, your rates are increasing. So all the tier ones and a lot of the tier two, a lot of the carriers are reviewing what they're doing right now. And we're seeing upwards of 35%, as insanely as that sounds, this is true, upwards of 35% rate increases that are coming through in July and August. And then you get another clip towards the end of the year as well. So just be mindful, as most of you have joined today, be aware of the pressures. While some things are still stabilizing, we're still seeing freight costs go up year on year. All right, onto the integration. So we'll talk a little bit about the actual integration and connecting and what that sort of looks like. So obviously, we offer that freight management solution, but we also offer the integration, which is absolutely key for you to be able to sort of really grow your business and streamline your operations. So we've been in this space for 5 years. We've been working with MYOB Enterprise, so Advanced and Nexo for over 5 years now. And we're a certified premium development partner, which means we get to use that nice little purple logo in this slide. Offer it more than just that connector, as we've talked about. We've got plenty of case studies and reference sites available. So we'll hear from Julian at Caroline very shortly, but we've also got many other customers that are successfully been using this and have rolled this out for some time now. And a fun little fact, we actually use MYOB Advanced here at TIG. So we're not a wholesale distributor. We don't use it for sales orders and and shipping and whatnot, but we do use it for our accounting. So to a certain degree, we do dog food the product, I think is the terminology that we use. But yeah, we find it a very, very powerful platform. And from an accounting point of view and the way we use it, it absolutely fits our needs. So what does the actual integration itself do? What does this all mean? So the integration provides a real-time push sync, we'll call it, with MYOB Advanced, and an API-driven pool with MyObXO. So it doesn't matter what you're using, we've got connectivity for both. It syncs all your sales order and shipping data with Open Freight, our platform, back into MyOb. So stuff like the costs of your freight can actually be written back into MyOb. Additionally to that, all the other shipping data as well. So who it went with, the ETA times, transit times, all that information, along with the cost, connote number, tracking links, etc. We can map your receivers with directly to always go with this particular carrier. We can do buckets, we can do rules, we can do least cost routing. You can imagine it. There's a good chance that we can do that. Even better than just doing a straight, I guess, sort of API connector is we seamlessly plug into EVEXO, which is a really, I guess, good and premium, I would say, MyOb WMS, which works again with Advanced and XO. That allows you to offer, I guess, a truly automated paperless warehouse. That is the end goal. The sort of best solution you can have is that paperless warehouse, using a combination of TIG, the team at Kilimanjaro, and Avexo. So go back to the market. Obviously, we've talked about costs have been increasing. It's definitely a challenge at the moment for everyone, including us. We are lucky that we use a number of carriers and have been doing this a year. We are the sort of experts in the field, but it is a challenge for everyone nonetheless. We're going to look at two things, which is the external factors and the internal factors. The external factors are the things that we can't really have any control over. So raw freight costs, well, yes, we can all negotiate them with our freight partners. To a certain degree, things like surcharges, those fuel levies, your annualized increases, your out-of-cycle increases, and the actual raw rate cost, whether it be per item or cents per kilo, that is set by the market. It doesn't matter who you're using. It is that market rate for 2023 is the market rate for 2023. It's a little bit like energy, anything else. It's somewhat set. The delivery performance as well. So the delivery performance that you receive from different carriers and different carrier partners. Stuff like onboarding agents. Depending on where your freight is going, is it an onboarding agent touching it? And does that therefore mean that every time I go into Dubbo, I get damages? Or every time it goes to Lismore, it's always misdirected? Those I guess challenges around delivery performance, unfortunately outside of our control. Obviously we can change carriers, but again, that's dictated by the carrier itself. Pickup performance. Still blows my mind that this is a challenge in 2023, but we've obviously had driver shortages with carriers for during the COVID period. That's still sort of flowing on, but even today, we have issues with pickups, and we see customers every day, chat to new customers every day, and they're like, "Yep, number one thing we have, like, delivery performance is okay, but we can't get the freight picked up." We're lucky, in essence, that we've got a full team literally just sitting here all day watching computer screens and calling radar rooms, managing pickups. So pickups generally work relatively well, but it is definitely a factor to be considered. And finally, the actual service limitations around the carrier partner that you're using. Do they have limitations on length? Do they have limitation on weight? So Australia Post, if you're using Australia Post, can only take up to around 22-ish kilos and around a meter. Anything over that, they won't do. Are there any other challenges around the service in terms of the regions that's going to, etc.? All external factors that we can't really control, but we can look at and apply some things internally ourselves to be able to sort of overcome them as best as we can. So I've broken this down into three key kind of areas. One's our processes. So reviewing freight recovery. I don't know how many times we hear this, but we ask, do you recover your freight? Do you do FIS? Is it $300? I don't know how, but $300 is the magic number that so many businesses have. It's like FIS, $300. Well, can we review that? If it's costing me more to deliver that, can I actually review the way I recover those costs? Can I look at doing stuff like checkouts? My checkout, can I capture the cost there? Or do I increase that FIS? We need data to be able to do that. And then we need a solution to be obviously have that data to be able to review that. Can we look at consolidation? Whether that's consolidating orders for the day, or consolidating orders to your customers throughout the week. So instead of doing daily deliveries, we do every 2 days. But again, that comes down to customer expectations. Automation and integration, absolutely critical. I think you need to look at this if you're not doing it right now, is it will just save you a phenomenal amount of time and therefore for costs underlying in your business. Another really, really important part of the process to review is, can we reduce single person reliance? Again, we see customers still today where they've got one particular person in the warehouse and all the information stored up here. So who they send this with, where that goes, the challenges when it hits into some regional areas. We always know that when it gets to Brisbane, I have to call Joan because Joan's going to, all of those challenges, how to track, how to trace, they're the go-to person, which is great to have a go-to person. But if they leave, if they're sick, or a number of other factors to consider, single person reliance can be a huge hindrance that if we tick integration and automation, a few other things, we can definitely reduce. What are your customers' actual expectations? Review your customers' expectations. What are their expectations around delivery times? What are their expectations around carrier selection? Do you provide updates and notifications? Are you keeping them updated in terms of what's happening? And look at stuff like visibility and reporting. And finally, to tie that all together, your freight partner. Make sure that your freight partner is aligned to your customer expectations and therefore aligned to your expectation. Make sure your freight partner is providing visibility, continuous review, iterative improvements, and what I like to call good old-fashioned customer service. So what are some of the actions that we can actually take as businesses to challenge these market forces? Well, first and foremost, let's move to data-driven decisions. We want to have as much data into that valuable ERP that you use every day and any other unified system as possible. To be able to review freight recovery, to be able to improve visibility and drive accountability, you need to be able to have that information in your ERP, and you can make effective data-driven decisions once you achieve that. You need to have that integrated system. I implore you to explore this option because it just adds so much value to your operations. It removes completely single person reliance and allows you to have better carrier selection and allows you to achieve better sort of carrier consolidation. Set expectations. Keep your customers updated through notifications and integrated technologies. Make sure that those expectations are aligned to your freight partners. Demand visibility, demand reporting, and demand continuous review and support. If you're not getting that today, you should be, because it's almost a minimum requirement to be able to effectively grow and continue to expand what you're doing. All of this is all tied together, and it all comes back to really having that data in the ERP and having integration. So we'll jump into Carolam's story on the back of that. And I'll throw to Jules in a minute. And again, really appreciate Julian, putting some time aside today to talk to everyone a little bit about your story. Before we do, just high level, some stats that we've established from implementing what we've done with Carolam. So Carolam went from a manual system or manual process to an integrated system. So working with Kilimanjaro, Evexo, and TIG, achieved a 1x FTE, around 25% reduction in the amount of people that we need to be able to dispatch goods, and at the same time, approximately 80% reduction in picking errors. Sorry, we did a freight review with Carolam as well, so we reviewed their freight They were using, again, we'll go into this in a second, but we implemented carrier's best fit for them to reduce some surcharges. And we achieved a net cost reduction at that point for them of around 8%. And service improved. So in their customer service team, we saved around 20 hours a week from them having to be on hold and speaking to carriers and chasing things up. It's 97% reduction in certain lanes. So local freight almost just is seamless now. And their customers get updates with Track My Parcel. So without further ado, I will throw to Jules just to talk us through a little bit about the story and sort of, where we started.
Sure. Hey, Daniel, thanks for having me, mate. So when we started, we were using a mixture of 3 carriers who we held accounts with directly. And freight was always sent through one of these guys. We used to do the full manual process of keying in a sales order. We'd then print it off, send it downstairs, and the team downstairs would pick the order, manually write down the batch numbers and the serial numbers and stuff like that. And then they'd get somebody else to check the order for them before giving it to the dispatch manager, who would then just rekey all of that information that was on the piece of paper into EXO and our freight partner's website at the time. That led to a lot of inconsistencies. So batch numbers were either written down incorrectly or typed in incorrectly. Addresses, phone numbers for customers were incorrect quite a lot. And that led to an awful amount of phone calls from our customers, along with our stock control team just having fits of rage consistently. The way that we tackled this was we talked to Kilimanjaro. We went, hey, we're having all of these problems. What can we do about it? They recommended Evexo. And while I was talking to Evexo, I mentioned to him about all of our freight issues while we were being integrated with them. And he suggested that we try out TRG, which we then gave a call. They've had lots of integrations with them, and they said it's seamless to get involved, and it would cost us effectively nothing to get started, which is good. So we contacted TRG. They came out, I believe it was Connor that came out, and talked to us about the different carriers that they use, and asked for 3 months worth of invoices from our previous carrier. We sent them through, and when he came back with an 8% decrease in cost for those 3 months, we jumped straight on board effectively after that.
Yeah, as you would.
Yeah.
I think you noted at just in terms of the surcharges as well, at the time when you were implementing Evexo, I guess before we sort of jumped in and started looking after your freight, there was additional manual handling fees and stuff like that. So these surcharges almost came out of nowhere, and stuff going to shopping centers, etc. That was really hurting the business, wasn't it?
Yeah, so we were sending like 20 cartons to different shopping centers for our customer, the beauty and brow parlor in particular, and the courier was slapping on a $12.50 per carton fee just for delivering it into a shopping center, which sent a $40 original fee, turning it into $280. And we charge a customer $40 just to match it. They also had another thing where they asked us to put fragile stickers on everything. And then what they started doing was charging us $10 for every carton that had a fragile sticker on it, which just seemed ridiculous, but
Yeah. Please use your sticker and we'll charge you more.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Do it on everything. Yeah. Absolutely. And then when we implemented, I think we looked at a mix of carriers. So I think we implemented a tier 1 and maybe 2 tier 2. So I think from memory, we had someone that was doing majority of your carton freight, a secondary to do carton freight as well, which is that sort of tier 2 carrier. And then someone did sort of the bulk freight. And those carriers didn't have those same kind of surcharges for your type of freight, which I think helped obviously in that reduction. Correct.
And where there were surcharges, when I was speaking with you guys, you sort of told me how I could avoid them anyway. Like, that was quite handy. Never really got that from our previous carrier at all.
All right, cool. So implemented, let's talk about from implementation point of view. You implemented us first, didn't you? Like it was, so Evexo was the project, it was happening at the time. But we went live with TIG before we actually went live with the Vexo, didn't you?
Yeah, it was about 6 or 7 months before we went live with Uvexo. We had a lot of data entry issues for the last 10 years of our company, so we had to fix all of them up before we started using Uvexo properly. And yeah, so we used the TRG for about 7 months, I think it was. In about May 2021, we started.
Okay, awesome. So the freight process itself, the freight review process, I should say itself, would you say that was relatively painless? And what was involved, just for everyone out there today, just so they get a bit of a feel how much effort is required from their side?
Yeah, absolutely. So we sent through the previous 3 months worth of invoices, as I mentioned before. Connor went through, I'm not sure if Connor did it himself, but he went through it all and said, hey, look, these are the parts where we win and these are the parts where we're going to lose with the specific carriers that he picked out. He then showed us more carriers that would win in those other places, which led to the mix of the 1 tier 1 and the 2 tier 2 carriers. The tier 1 carrier that he had suggested, though, our CEO, Greg, had a problem with when he started the company about 10 or 12 years ago, or started with the company 10 or 12 years ago, which made him go, I'm not sure why we'd use these. Connor just said, look, if there's a problem, it's on us. So if you trust us on this, we reckon that they'll absolutely see you through to the end of the day. And we did, and we haven't looked back since, still using it. So
yeah, awesome. And I guess in terms of the benefits that you sort of saw after implementing TIG, were there any sort of immediate benefits, from day one or, within 2-3 weeks?
I mean, obviously there was the 8% decrease in cost, which was just great as a baseline. We also found that our sales team, who used to sit on the phone to our previous carrier for a couple of hours, waiting for them just to pick up, let alone helping them solve the issue at hand, that typically went away as well. So we send you guys an email or lodge an inquiry on your online portal or call you, and you'd call us back. We wouldn't have to do anything after that, and we knew that we'd always get the phone call back or the query looked at anyway, which we could pass on to the customer and say, look, they're looking into it for us. We'll let you know as soon as we have something. The other thing was that the customer would also call you guys sometimes and get it sorted out, or use the Track My Parcel feature, lodge an inquiry there, and you guys would just do it all without us in any way, which was wonderful, if I'm honest.
Awesome. And if there was one single benefit you would say by working with TIG that stood out, what would it be?
Oh, it's just the customer service. It's second to none.
Yeah. And I haven't paid you to say this, have I?
Not yet.
Not yet. That's right. So as we sort of moved into I guess the Uvexo implementation, the transition from having TIG properly implemented before implementing the WMS, was that a seamless, somewhat integration opposed to maybe tackling both at the same time? How did that go?
Yeah, so we had our dispatch manager manually consigning the stuff through Open Freight originally, and when we started using Uvexo, we had plenty of issues with barcodes on products not being correct in EXO and stuff like that, and staff figuring out how to use Uvexo in general, we've got a couple of older people down there, which they're not very great with technology. So having Open Freight set up was just made life a lot easier. Uvexo would automatically consign with the lowest cost carrier, and dispatch manager would sort of check that. And I don't think there was ever an issue between the Uvexo and the Open Freight part of it, and definitely none for us either when we were using lowest cost. So
awesome. So pretty seamless, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And the immediate results from then, adding that integration into the mix.
Yeah. So we had one person leave about a month or two after we started using Uvexo, not because of using Uvexo, but because I found it something better. And we actually never bothered to replace them. And that's only 2 months into using it. People were still trying to figure out how to do everything properly and quickly. And we'd already dropped a person, which was great, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to say awesome, but yeah, as you said,
yeah.
in the right manner.
Yes.
So thinking back to your previous process from when you obviously, you implemented TIG and you've implemented the WMS integration now as well. Do you think Karen Lab could have continued, I guess, on its growth trajectory and continue to improve internally without having having this?
Absolutely not. So prior to getting Uvexo in anyway, we had a picking error rate of 4 or 5%, which is probably 1 to 2 errors a day, along with a 3% data entry rate, which is quite high considering you're just copying down the thing from a piece of paper. Today we have like less than a 1% error rate, like 1 to 2 dispatching errors a week if we're on a bad week. And we have no more data entry errors for dispatch at all, which is crazy.
Awesome.
It's just amazing. When we do have errors, typically I'll go down and investigate why it happened, and then I'll talk to TIG or Uvexo or Kilimanjaro about what's happened and how it's happened, and see what we can do to fix it anyway, so it won't happen again.
Yeah, and that's when that does happen, or if it does, and you're talking as to everyone, do you find we all work together pretty well?
Absolutely. Yeah. So because you guys are all affiliated together, you all have each other's phone numbers, and if I go to Uvexo, then he'll call you or you'll call Kilimanjaro, and it's just really handy having you all working together so closely.
Yeah. Wonderful. So I'm mindful of time, but just quickly, post implementation. So once it's been, everything's been moving, I guess, well for a number of years now. Is there any new reporting that you get from us? Talk a little bit about what you maybe get out of Exo now in terms of data and whatnot.
Yeah, sure. So you guys send through an Excel copy of an invoice along with the PDF copy. With the Excel copy, I can use a script to pull out some information from Exo, being the customer name, the contact number that I've traveled on, and the cost of the freight. And I can compare the two and see where we're losing out or maybe gaining a bit too much money. So we can adjust the freight rates accordingly in Exo to match that. It also lets us know if we used a tailgate or not. And if we did, then we need to charge the customer for the tailgate, because that's just an added cost that nobody can see coming, apparently. Yeah, even though we know the customer doesn't have a forklift, we still don't charge them for it for whatever reason. Yeah.
Awesome. And the solution that we implemented on day one is a little bit different to the solution that you've got now. So there were obviously some changes. Talk a little bit about that process and what that looks like.
Yeah, sure. So when we came on in May, towards the end of the year, it started to be COVID period. And a lot of carriers were having a few problems there. One of them was one of our tier 2 carriers. They were missing pickups. They were not delivering on time. They were losing freight. It just was not working out really well for them. They had a lot of people off, mind you, so we've got no hard feelings there, but it was really frustrating at the time. We ended up knocking them off and going with just our tier 1 carrier for a while, which they did really well. They took all the extra freight and had no problems whatsoever. The problem with that was they were about 15 or 20% more expensive than the tier 2. So we talked to you guys, and you brought on us another tier 2 for us, which have been just kicking goals. They're probably just as good as Toll, if I'm honest. So it's going really well now. We also have a local courier that we asked you to add on our behalf, which we pay the bill for. And the problem previous was that the companies were charging us as pickups from Melbourne, which is really good when you're going to any other state except for your hometown of Geelong, which is you get charged to go to Melbourne and back to Geelong, which is triples the cost or even sometimes quadruples the cost. But having the local courier just makes it significantly cheaper again.
Wonderful. All right. Just obviously quite mindful of the time we've set aside. So just to wrap up, is there any sort of additional thoughts or comments or anything you'd like to throw in, and then I'll release you from your duties?
That's right. The last thing I'll say is that the Track My Parcel website that you guys have set up for us sends out notifications to the customers when it's being picked up, or when it's being consigned, when it's being picked up, when it's ETAs, and when it's on board for delivery, which is really good. We find that very rarely do we have a customer call us at all unless we've messed up their email address in our system. But look, TRG's got us through a lot of rough periods, specifically COVID, when I reckon I was on the phone to them most days, and Reese and Connor, who were both looking out for us at the time, were just on top of everything, and I never had to really worry about it, which is really good. So yeah, highly recommend.
Wonderful. Thank you for your kind words. I'll slip you the 50. It's the checks in the mail.
Yeah, good. Yeah, thanks.
So wrapping up, what are your next steps? So if you, obviously found the webinar exciting and want to find a little bit more, so the next steps from here, we generally recommend to book a demo in within sort of 1 to 2 weeks. Once we do the demo, we'll do the freight review, which is around sort of 3 to 4 weeks. And then once our freight review sort of is complete, and then we start looking at sort of an operational implementation. Same time, we would start that MyOp integration, which is just sort of around sort of 2 to 3 weeks. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Julian. Thank you, Johan. Thank you, the team at Kilimanjaro, for hosting us. We will throw to Q&A.
Perfect. Daniel, amazing work. And Julian, I don't think Daniel could pay you enough. I think, from my perspective, it almost sounds too good to be true. It's like you save money off the bat, but you've got all these hidden costs that you also don't have anymore. Like salesmen on the phone that just chase a delivery, that type of thing. It's amazing. Before we jump onto the Q&A, just a few things. Our next webinar actually is on Evexo, which is a product that really integrates well with TIG as an add-on to the warehouse management system. And actually on that point, I have a few questions here. One of them actually relates to Evexo. Question is, do I need Evexo to take advantage of TIG?
Look, to answer that question, as much as I want to say yes, because we'll love the team at Evexo, and the solution itself obviously works really well when it is, but high level, as I sort of touched on, we can do an integration directly with MyOp. So you don't need Evexo WMS to be able to take advantage of the TIG solution and what we offer, let alone, I guess, the core integration. But obviously, once you tie that in, the whole thing just works just to the next level.
Even better.
Yeah.
And then I have one from Cindy here. She says, majority of ship with international freight. How does TIG handle this?
Yeah. Good question. Good question, Cindy. So from an international, so we're domestic experts in terms of the freight management side of things. But from a connectivity point of view and from a platform point of view, absolutely, we've got a handful of international carriers that we can plug into. Now, that is more on that air freight, LCL type freight. So we're talking, satchels and cartons and whatnot, traveling with your DHLs, your FedEx, those type of businesses. So we don't do import, export, big containers yet. It's not our expertise, but that sort of smaller type freight, if it's international, is definitely something that we can look at. Definitely look into.
Perfect. Look, I have a few more questions here. I'm just picking up the most important ones, I think. It's a good one here. How does your software integrate with Shopify and multi-dispatch locations? Yeah,
that's a really, really good question, and it's something that we actually get asked quite a bit. So from a Shopify perspective, we've got an integration for Shopify, so we can plug into that, and we can quote rates out of different locations. So we get location information, so we can dispatch and quote from different locations. We can do some things to be able to make sure that those prices are as accurate as possible in the e-commerce world, but high level, plug into Shopify, multi-dispatch, not a problem.
Does it have any other e-commerce platforms integrated, like WooCommerce and stuff?
Yep. So we do WooCommerce, Shopify, as we've mentioned, Magento.
We
also plug into Neato. So it was Maripost. It was Neato, then Maripost, then Neato. So those sort of four. And we've got a number of customers using bespoke platforms as well that we plug into for B2B portals.
I think those four would be covering most of the B2B e-commerce platforms. Julian, I've got a question for you. Not sure if you want to answer that, but it's ask how much do you spend on freight annually?
I don't mind answering if Daniel's good.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So it's about $6,000 a week, which if I plug that into my calculator, it will probably give me 652, $310,000 a year, roughly.
Okay. And Daniel, your sort of cutoff is about. I mean, when you go back to your pricing, that is one of those,
Yeah, it is.
qualify.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
So previously that was a little bit lower. It has increased a little bit this year, but it's around that $300,000 mark. And look, the reason for that to exist is part to be able to make sure that we can service you well, but also it aligns. We find that that sort of aligns really well. When it comes to working with us.
Good. Another one from Cindy. We have special requirements such as dangerous goods. Can you handle them?
Yeah, absolutely. So any sort of special requirements, whether it be tailgate deliveries, dangerous goods, or anything in between, system capability and TRG capabilities all there.
And you added $10 to the fragile stickers as well.
We won't. They will. So.
Another question: do you service New Zealand?
Yeah, absolutely.
And why?
And why?
Yes, so sure.
This is an extended statement. Yeah, we do. We do service New Zealand. So we do the domestic New Zealand market. We've got a handful of carriers that we're working with now. We are looking to extend that and expand that as well. So if you're based in New Zealand, please reach out to us. We'd love to have a chat. We don't offer our freight managed services in New Zealand yet, but we do offer the platform and the connector in New Zealand right now.
Perfect. I've got a question. TIG, what does it stand for? You know, I always look at it, I go, TIG must be tenacity, innovation, grit, something like that. I don't know.
Look, we do have innovation in some of our values and whatnot. We do joke around. So our company's obviously was founded by two directors. So they joke around, they say it stands for two intelligent guys. I should have figured it out. The reality
are you one of them?
No, I wish. Three intelligent.
Three
four.
intelligent, yeah.
I guess that works still.
20 intelligent guys.
Yeah. Now look, it's just some initials. So
okay,
it's some initials that have been around for 22 years and have stuck. So
all good.
Here we go. Yeah.
Excellent. Look, I think we're at the end of the important questions. If anybody's got any more questions, just want to remind again, Ivexa will be at the next webinar. Keep an eye out. We will send the normal invites to people. That certainly enhances the TIG capabilities as well. Daniel and Julian, thank you so much. I think I will speak on behalf of all our customers that attend today. Been a great session. I think they certainly could see a lot of value in pursuing this. A quick question. So going forward, if anybody wants to know how to get in touch with you, suggestion is get in touch with your account manager and set up a demo with Daniel and his team. And the rest is really smooth sailing. So easy to get in touch and go forward from there.